What's up, guys? Welcome to part 3 of Learn to Code an API in JavaScript. In the last video, we took a look at how we could serve our to-do list in Express. Then we created our first post route. And finally, we also connected the add button to that post route. In this video, we're going to continue work on that by connecting to a database. And we're going to be using MySQL. So first of all, we're going to set up MySQL for our local development. Secondly, we're going to connect our API to MySQL. And thirdly, we're going to insert new items into the database when you click the add button. The fourth point is we're going to be able to update item states, that is, whether they are completed or not. And finally, we're also going to be able to delete items from the database. All right, let's just jump into it. We're going to start off just where we left off. All right. So here's our code from last time. This is our post request from the actual app. And this is the status or the state of our API. Great. So the first thing is we're going to install MySQL. So I think it's pretty much the same thing for macOS and Windows and Debian and Linux distros and stuff. It's just a matter of downloading a specific file and installing it. Now you can of course do it however you want if you know what you're doing, but the simplest way is to just download the DMG file, the community version. So yeah, right here. So you just choose the operating system you're using and you download that, you install it, and you're good to go. Now, a quick thing you can do to make your life a little easier is to, let's see, add some extra aliases to your bash profile. So I have these aliases right here for MySQL start, stop, restart, and status, just to make things a bit easier if you want to start or stop your MySQL in your terminal. And the same thing for MySQL and MySQL dump. These are the most, so to speak, important ones because they are going to save you a lot of time for connecting to MySQL or dumping a database, for example. So I'm going to post these in the description as well. So when you have those, you can, let's put this there. MySQL status is actually running. So MySQL.stop. And now we're stopping MySQL. MySQL.status not running. MySQL start. Starting success. Great. So MySQL is up and running. If you have macOS, you actually get a MySQL item in the settings view that you can stop and start here as well if you want. Okay, so to log into MySQL, you need to type out MySQL -u root, this is root user or whatever user you want to log in as, and then -p for password. Hit enter and then enter the password and you're good to go. And that's pretty much it. You got MySQL set up. Now we're going to connect the API to MySQL, and we're going to be using a package from npm called MySQL 2. Now MySQL 2 compared to the regular MySQL is supposedly a bit better. It's much more performant. You can read a little bit about the difference between MySQL and MySQL 2. But I'm going to use MySQL 2 just for this video. So we're going to install it. Just like that. Great. So let's see here. I have index right here. Let's think about this. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how we should approach managing the logic for validating strings and stuff like that. The proper way would use like MVC framework. Also, I was thinking about using an ORM like Sequelize, but I want to keep the level at a decent level for the beginners as well. So it's not that much to learn. It become quite challenging. Also, we're not going to be implementing any user authentication at this point. If you do want that, of course, you can leave a comment, and that's going to be part of a future part of this series, at least if you want to see that. But let's just get started anyway, and then we can just adapt things as we go. So first we need to import MySQL from MySQL 2. Right? And then we need to create a connection. So this is just a package for now. Now we need to actually connect to the database. So let's create a connection in mysql.connect, create connection. That accepts an object. And then you have host, localhost. You have a user, root, and password. For this setup that I have root, best password ever. And the database name is let's say to do. We don't have a database right now, but that's just the one that we're going to be creating in a moment. And then you can, if you want to, just make sure that the connection works, you can do a try catch like this. And then you get an E for error. So you have connection dot connect, and then if something happens, you can do console log, oops, connection to MySQL failed. Something like that, very basic. Great, so that's pretty much it. That creates a connection to MySQL, and we can use that to perform queries. But right now we don't have a database, we don't have a table. So I was thinking we could use a very basic SQL file or something just to keep the tables there. Yeah, this is why you have an ORM. Believe it, it's so much better, but it's a bit more complex to learn. So yeah, future video, definitely. Let's do data.sql. So first of all, the database. So for SQL, to create a database, it's simple, create a database, caps. You can do lowercase if you want to. I'd prefer if you don't. The name is to do. We set the default character set as UTF-8, of course, and the default collision is UTF-8 general case insensitive. So that's the query to create the database. Why I put it in an SQL file is that we can commit this to GitHub, and then you just copy that and paste it for if you want to you need to set up again, for example. And then we need a table as well. I was thinking to just do one table for now for all the tasks, no users or anything like that, no categories, no folders, and then we could just build upon that for future videos. So like I said, leave any comments for like suggestions. Anyway, create table tasks. Should always have an ID, not null. Primary key, and let's just do an auto incremented ID for auto increment. Yeah, to make it easy for us. Then we have the description of the actual task. That could be a variable character. Let's say 64 characters, should not be empty or null. Then we have the state, the completed, and that is a binary. So it's a tiny int of one length, and it could not be null, and the default value is 0. That is, it's not completed. And then we can have 2 extra fields just to, look at the data you have created. Datetime, not null, default now. And now is a built-in function in MySQL that runs every time in this query, and then grabs the datetime and then uses that as a value. And then we can have last updated as well. Now, last updated is going to be pretty much the same as created, but on an update, when you update a value in tasks in a row, it's going to update the last updated row or column, with the latest datetime from MySQL. Okay, awesome. So first of all, let's create the database. This looks about right. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it works. All right, so let's use to do. So now we're using to do as our database. Show tables. We have no tables, so we're going to create our table using this query. Just paste it, enter. Seems to be working. Show tables, tasks, describe tasks, ID, description completed, created, last updated. Perfect. We are pretty much good to go. All right, so we have the connection, and if we now run our API, no errors, seem to be working. Localhost 3000, it's working. That's pretty cool. We have an error apparently. File icon. Haven't seen that before. All right, great. So now that we're connected to MySQL, we don't really have anything to say that we have. We didn't get the error, which means that we're connected, because the connection.connect actually went through. That's the whole thing of try catch. You can Google that on Mozilla Development Network or whatever. But console log connection, just to make sure that you can see whatever connection is. As you can see, you get a huge object of information that we really don't need to concern ourselves with right now. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is update this button, or this button action, the request that goes through the post request. So when you create a new item, let's say just new item, it works, and we get a new item to the API. Now this new item is going to be inserted to the database. So so it works great. So right here, as in rec.body, there is an object right now with a property called item, which contains the description of our new item, which is basically all we need, because as you can see here in the database, the ID is going to be automatic. It's going to auto increment. The completed is going to be default 0, and created and last updated is also going to be handled completely automated by MySQL. So we're all good. Then, so to insert it, you just use connection.query, and then you say insert into, and then the table name, which is tasks, to parentheses, values, parentheses. And what we're going to insert is a description, and the value is going to be what contains in the item. But we want to bind this value because we want to escape the string, so that you can't really insert any malicious SQL injections. So you just use a question mark, and then you throw in an array, and then it's going to go through the array according to the index position. So the first question mark is the first value in the array, and so on and so forth. You only have one item or one value, so we have request or rec body item, and then we have a callback function, and in that we get an error and and results. Okay, cool. So if there was an error, return res dot, let's send back JSON actually, like that. So this way, if something bad happens in our SQL insertion, we send back the error. This is definitely not something you want to do in production, so please don't. I advise you not to do this, but the error is great to have if because you might not want to look at the console, whatever. But yeah, this whatever. We're sending back the error to the user to show that, oh shit, something bad happened. But if this pulls through, if it works, then we want to grab the ID of the last inserted item. That is this the task that we inserted. So then we can do connection.query, select last inserted ID from tasks. Pretty sure that's what you write. Error results. We can do the same thing, just throw in the error, console log, results. Great. Let's see if this works. New item. Error code, SQL state. Last inserted ID does not exist. Insert ID. Jesus Christ. So picky, so picky. But we should actually have an item now. So if you use select all from tasks, awesome. Hope this worked for you as well. So great. We actually get the item in the database, but now we didn't get the ID because I misspelled it. But yeah, whatever. Let's rerun the API. Another item. And yeah, there you go. We get text row. We get actually 2 results for some reason. So yeah, we grab the first one. It doesn't really matter because yeah, the first one's the same one. Interesting the fact that we get 2. And then we use this string index to grab the value. And thus we get the ID. There you go. Whoop. And this whoop has the ID of 3. Now, why do we want the ID? Well, we're going to use the ID when we update the completed state or when we want to remove the task. Because as you might remember, we have 2 different ways of managing our to-dos. We have completion state and we have a delete. And these buttons are going to be, they're going to be triggering a post request to the API that handles that request. So if it's completed, it's going to be changed to completed state in the database as well. But for now, let's just remove these. We can delete all from, delete from tasks like that. But now that works. Awesome. And we have the ID right here. Or actually, we can have just, we have the task is an object, ID, description, well, rec body item, like that. So this is the object. This is actually the item that we created, and then we can send that back with our request as a response. Res.json, yeah, res.json task. Or since we're not going to be using the variable anymore, we might as well just send back the whole object like that. So what this does is that we're going to send back that object to the browser when we created it, and then we can use this ID in the HTML to identify a certain item that way. Great. So when we get this back, we had a response text. Now, since we get back JSON, we need to we actually need to parse that JSON So JSON.parse that. Oh, JSON equals that, or we can use results. Yeah, and if results.error, turn console log results error. Otherwise, we want to do something. So send item to the do. Maybe we should do, yeah, let's do a callback. So once the actual request is done, we're going to run a callback that then sends back the data that we get from the results. So let's just do if callback, run the callback with the results. Now the proper way to do this would be to send back error as well. So you could probably maybe do null and then results. But let's just do this the simple way, so to say. So where we run send item to do, send item to API, we actually can throw in a callback function now where we get the item. And inside this function, we can then do our work. So let's just make sure that we get our item right there before. So we need to start the API. This looks right, I think, at least. Close these two. Test. Yes, we get back ID 4 and description test. And in our database, we have, description test ID 4. Awesome. And this one is actually built, even though we commented I add item to DOM. That value, okay. We should do this once the request is done, actually, in my opinion. And this function should be updated because now we want the actual ID to be on the list node, so that when you click on the buttons, you can grab the list node and then grab the ID from there, and then send the ID with the request to, for example, toggle the completed states when you click this button, or when you click this the trash can to delete it, you send the ID and say that I want to delete this specific item, and then it's deleted by ID. Because you can, for now, you can use the same description for multiple items. So you can have 1,000 different test items, and then if you say that in an SQL query that I want to delete the item with the description test, you delete all the 1,000 items, which isn't such a good idea. Might be obvious to some of you, so yeah. Add item to DOM. There's the function, we get a text, completed. All right, var list is if it's completed, we're gonna grab the, so yeah, it's in the list, so add item to DOM. Right. So this is the text. It's only used once, so I'd probably do data, more properly task, and then task.description, and then the item here, set attribute data. Data ID to be task.id. Simple as that. So when the actual item is added to the DOM, we are also adding this attribute to the list item. So like I said, when you click the button, you can grab its parent, and then you can use that ID in the requests. Awesome. So get the item. We're gonna use that right there. This data stuff we can actually not care about right now. We can actually remove that, to be honest. The render to-do list. That's probably from, yeah, it's probably run like once, I believe. Yeah, so we can comment that out for now, because that's using the local storage. And like I said, I don't want to be using the local storage for now. Last data update was updated. We can remove that because since we have a database, it doesn't really matter. We don't really need local storage for now, at least. We can use that for cache, or we can use something like service workers or whatever. But yeah, so data object updated. Let's remove that for everywhere it is. We can remove that. Render to-do list. This one should be rewritten. Rewrite to use the API. So basically we're gonna fetch the data from the API and then render the to-do list using that API that we fetch. This we can also remove. Data dots. Okay, so there's no data dot anymore. There's no local storage usage. Great. So it was a pretty small script file actually. So it's not that important to, or it's not that cumbersome to update. So data object updated. This one shouldn't exist anymore. Nope. Great. Awesome. And does this one run? It's only run once. Great. Awesome. Add item, which done that. All right. So it looks good. Looks about right. Complete item. Yeah, we're going to do some stuff there as well. But at least this works for now. So there's no items in there. We can't delete from, actually, yeah, let's just try this out first. That's the important part. So my first task. Great, and let's check. Yes, awesome. So there's the ID for this specific task. All right, so it works. Now, what we want to do is grab items. We want to be able to fetch all the items from the database and list them in our HTML, like in here, in the actual lists. So API.get tasks. So when you go to tasks in the API, you should receive a list of all the tasks. And you can split these up by completed and uncompleted. So let's do connection.query. Select all from tasks. Order by, let's see, order by, it should be created. And it should be descending, so the latest ones are on top. You can copy this, and then we get some results. You can do return. Actually, I think you can do res.json, then an object, then you do completed, or to do, for example, and then you grab results.filter, filter function, callback, return item, return item.completed is, no, not return item.completed is false. I think that should work. We don't even need the parentheses if you want to do completely streamlined. This works. So this is going to be basically a for each loop. It's going to loop through all the results and grab the item. And if the item completed is false, it's going to return that into the to-do. Then you can do the same thing here with completed, but say that if it's completed, it's going to end up in the completed. That's going to be creating an array. I hope. I get these mixed up sometimes, the array methods. Yeah, so let's see. API up and running. Tasks. Nice. It seems to be working. So just for example, let's do a completed task. So now we update this. Yes, great. So it's actually ordering it perfectly right now because it orders by created. It could be ordered by ID, of course, sure. But this is more like, in my opinion, the proper way to use the created part is because it's dates. But this one, like the completed task, we should change this to true. We can do this by hand. So update tasks, set completed to completed to 1, where ID is equal to 6. So that's a completed task. 1 row affected, works, select all from tasks. Completed is 1, update this. Oh, yes, thank you. So as you can see, we get an array in the completed and the to-do right now. And also this is, sorry if this is confusing. This is probably how it looks for you. But I have this basic, very, very simple, what's it called, extension called JSON formatter for Chrome. That makes this so much easier to manage if you're using a lot of API and JSON stuff. Anyway, so we get an array for the to-do and a completed using the filter method. And then all the items that have completed as false or 0 is end up in to-do because they're not completed. And the same thing goes for here. This is great because now we can go to this using the GET request in our app and then just add those to the DOM. Pretty neat. Great. So right here, the render the to-do list, this should run like the, so to say, the main method, or it should download all the items directly from the web or from the API. Sorry. So yeah, well, we might as well do this right here. And we have the send item. So function get items or get tasks from, or get tasks. Very simple. Will fetch all tasks from API. Great. Send item, send task, in my opinion. So let's change that to send task and send item. This might be confusing you, sorry. So send task to API, just change that, makes more sense. And it's called Jesus. Get tasks, send item. Anyway, there's some naming stuff that I need to do. I'll do this post or whatever. Maybe we can do this later. Anyway, so let's focus because we don't have all the time in the world. Get tasks. So var rec. Actually, let's save some time. Let's create an XML HTTP request. A get request to tasks, and then rec.send. Very basic. We don't have to send any headers or anything because we're not sending anything. And then we add the response or the event listeners for the response, the error, and the load. This one can be the same thing. And then results could be the same thing as well. And you run the callback, get tasks. Great. So yeah, we basically copied the whole thing and just changed the URL and the request type. Pretty neat. Get tasks. Tasks, console log tasks. Awesome. Let's check the console. Awesome. So here you go. Here's all the data. We don't need like the description. We need the description. We don't need the created, the last updated, but let's just leave them for there. You can filter that out if you want to, but I'll just leave it there. Great. So we have the tasks. Then we can render. Well, I remove the function, of course. So function render to do render task lists. He's changing the names. Yeah, I know. Or the naming convention would be the proper term. We'll take the yeah. So add item to do. Right, actually, oh, that feels a bit redundant actually to write. Yeah, add item to do to DOM. Yeah, right. So, this makes things a little easier actually, because then we can just do to do for each item. Run the function called add item to DOM item. Now that I come to think of it, why do we need to return two objects or two? Sorry if I'm confusing. I just realized there is no need to return two different lists. We have the data in here. We have the completed data right in here. So there's no real reason for that. I mean, it's structured, but it doesn't really, we don't really need to do that. Damn it. We can do, well, let's just return results for now and see what happens. Yeah, let's deal with that. Great, because now this makes things a little easier. We can simply do tasks for each, and then item and item completed. Oh, like that. Great. Nice. So that makes it unnecessary to write this whole function, because we do this right here. So in theory, this should work. It works. This is, I love this. I love web development. I can't believe I still get excited for things working. So let's just write a simple comment here. Fetch all tasks from API and add them to DOM. Okay, so now we've set up the MySQL, connected the API to the MySQL. We can insert new items to the database, and we fetch the items on a load of the page, and then it's also added when you create the item up here. Now we need to do the toggle functionality and the remove item functionality. So let's do the remove functionality first. So to remove item, you have the actual item right here. So let's console log the item just to make sure that it's the list item. So when you click this, yes, it's the list item. Perfect. So this ID we don't need. I don't know why I have that. You have the value. You don't need that either. You have a task ID is equal to item get attribute data ID, and then you can parse this as an int. That's the task ID. Console, we don't need to console log that. We don't need to write a function for this. Let's just create a request for that. Let's copy this post request thingy up in here. Great. And that's a post to tasks. Task ID. Remove. the remove item, when that's completed, it should be removed from the actual DOM. Yeah. Okay, so I chose to do this because it's more of the proper way, I think, in praxis of the API and the route structure. So we're gonna have an API.post for tasks, and then you have the ability to have variables like this, so colon and then the variable name, and then you can continue on, and then we can have remove here as well. And this means that this will become a variable in rec.query, I believe. Res. So we can do console log rec.query param, and that's going to be the ID of the task you want to remove. So that makes it pretty simple. You do connection .query update remove or delete from tasks where ID is equal to this ID. Now you can also do a check if you want to make sure that the task actually exists, but it doesn't really matter when you do a delete of the task. So you have error results. We can basically copy this, then rest.json, and open, or whatever, just an object. Yeah, great. Then we can also we can update this post right here to be task/add instead. That we can actually move this up. So like that, and then we update this one to be, actually this one to be task/add as well. Nice. So now we follow a pretty cool structure for URL. Great. So let's make sure that that works. Let's restart the API. We remove test. It was removed from the DOM. Select all from tasks. Test was removed. Nice. Awesome. It works. That's pretty cool. Great. So now we have the ability to update, no, actually delete items. The last thing, which we actually skipped for now, is to update the states. So then we can do api.post tasks ID update. Now this one is going to be a little more work because we have the ID. We're going to make sure that we send the state that we want to set, that is the completed state. So up right here, we have the ID, right? So this, in this case, we want the actual ID, the parent, exactly. Var state or completed. Actually, we don't really need to set that right there. We can just do the request instead. So let's copy the request. Updates. Post tasks task ID update, and then we want to send JSON.stringify JSON object that says complete. Completed is whether if ID is equal to do, like this. So yeah, exactly. So if the ID is to do, that is if the item is in the to-do list and you click complete, that means that it needs to be set to completed. That's why we send that with the JSON data, and then we can console log that right here, rec.body. And we can also copy this into here like that. I hope this makes sense. There's a lot of copying and jumping back and forth, but yeah, this should make sense, and this should work. So when you click the toggle button, task ID is not defined. Yeah, right, yeah. We need to grab the item task ID. Could have just copied that from top, I know. But anyway, so we get the task ID. Now it should work. And I don't need to restart, but I do it anyway for some reason. Toggle completed false. So this one should be completed false. And this one should be completed true. Great. It's working. Awesome. So we want to... We're up on 50 minutes right now, so let's just get this done. And then we can do some checks in the future video. So let's do a query, prepared query. Update tasks set completed to whatever, where ID is equal to something. So rec param ID is the second one. The first one is rec body completed. Error results. Jeez. Okay, and then we can just copy this whole thing actually. And if it's all good, yeah, this should be working in theory. Update that. And this should move up. Yes. And in the database, oh man, it works. Awesome. So, man, I keep jumping back and forth here. So now none of them are complete. And we move the completed task down. They are a completed task is complete. And then we can remove that one as well. It's removed. Awesome. My very first database task. Edit. It's there. It has the ID of 7. It has the ID of 7. We can update it to completed. It's updated to completed. We can toggle it back. It's updated to non-complete. Then we can remove our first task, and that's removed. There you go. So this is what you, so many of you have been asking for a long time. So I'm sorry it took so long, but this is basically it. This is how you connect the database. I hope it was a lot simpler than you thought. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you want any suggestions for future videos, improvements, stuff like that. I'd love to hear them. And feel free to follow me on Instagram. I do daily posts there. And also, I'd love if you subscribe. There will be more videos just like this one. Until then, take care, guys.